What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment. Today we have Steve French. He is from the Village. He sold $3.5 million, I think, over that just on Amazon this year. He'll clarify that in a second. A funny story, Alexa, his wife, I actually did a consulting call with her before I started doing online arbitrage, and that was the first purchase of course or coaching for online arbitrage, and it was super helpful. They run a community called The Village, which I am in as well. Thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Excited to get into it today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so give us a little story on kind of how you get started. It doesn't have to be super in-depth, but just a little bit of the beginnings of it.
Sure. So actually, my wife, Alexa, who John mentioned, started the business back in early February 2020. Didn't say anything to me. I was working at a full-time job. I was coaching high school basketball. She was on a maternity leave and didn't really want to go back to her position as a speech pathologist in the school. So she started Amazon. And she said, "Hey, I want to do this thing. You want to come source with me? Like, what's that? What does that mean?" So she kind of got me up to speed. We sent in one shipment, and then COVID happened, and everything got locked down. I was working in the travel industry, and the airlines weren't flying then, so I had time. Schools were closed. I couldn't coach, so I went from having a more than full-time job plus a coaching gig to nothing. And she was desperate to make it work. And so a lot of long nights and moving forward. And we did just under $1 million through the first 365 days. And now it's kind of grown to where she's at home and she's taking care of the kids and she's doing her dream of being a housewife. And even though I didn't start the business, I've taken it over and continued to grow it. So that's where we are here in early 2025.
Awesome. Yeah, so she has nothing to do with it anymore? Or,
She does some with the Village. She posts a lot about small business kind of things. She's into like a lot of investment stuff and things like that. But in terms of like day to day with the Amazon business, no, it's all me at this point.
That's awesome. Do you have any VAs or anything?
No VAs, no employees. We do have a local prep center here we use for some RA. And I do have one guy that comes in and works about 5 to 10 hours a week and does some prep, but that's really it.
So you're solo $3.5 million a year, basically.
Yeah. We had a great year. So that was the goal, 3.5. We ended up doing about 3.645 on Amazon. And I started Walmart in October, and we did about 195,000 in October, November, December on Walmart. So excited to get started over there too. That was a good experiment for first Q4.
What are your thoughts on Walmart altogether? Because we've had a lot of people on here that like really are big on Walmart, but
Yeah.
you're probably the biggest seller Amazon we've had that have talked about Walmart online arbitrage wise. So I'm curious your thoughts there.
To me, it's just another way to diversify, right? I mean, I think everyone, if you saw on Amazon, you should open a Walmart account. It's free. There's no reason not to have it. Do you have to use it? No, we had an account for about 3 years before we ever sold anything. But we just had it open just in case. It's definitely different than Amazon. The velocity is not the same unless you're just going to only run around and chase the hottest items and sell or fulfill them. But I think Q4s are really good. I sell a lot of toys, so certainly, a big market for that during Q4. It's just different. It's a totally different way of sourcing, different volume. It's the same in a lot of ways, but it's just the fee structure, everything is, you got to approach it differently, I think.
Yeah. What do you got, John?
What's like kind of your typical day look like? Because I feel like a lot of people that kind of do like 3.65 million,
Yeah.
don't have any VAs. I guess you kind of have a prep center. Like, what does that look like? I feel a lot of people's heads are probably spinning right now. It's like, how is that even possible?
So the way I try to explain it is, I've got 4 kids, 4 boys. Obviously I have a wife, stuff I do. The Village, all my different lists that I run, so it's like family stuff when that needs to happen. That's first, right? That's why I'm doing this. And then after that, it's just kind of work. I'm not like a big fire guy or anything like that, but I'd like to think, another decade or so of this, hopefully I don't have to do anything I don't want to do beyond that. And I'll be, mid 40s. So that'd be awesome. Like for this week, let's say like Monday, Tuesday, I almost spent all the time just shipping, working here. I had a ton of stuff I had to work through. We sold through so much stuff in Q4, so I was trying to get product back out and feed the beast. Today I went out and sourced a little bit in the morning, then an appointment. I had a coaching call before this. Now I'm on with you guys. I've got to do some basketball coaching stuff actually after this, and then I have a live in one of my groups at 8:00. So that's my day to day. So every day is different, but sourcing is a main part of it, and taking care of the groups for sure.
I don't want to go too off topic here, but I've just recently started coaching a middle school basketball team the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So do you have any quick tips on coaching? Which I have kids. I mean, dude, these are like 7th and 8th graders that are not actual middle school. So this is like buddy league, but curious any tips on that. It's
interesting. I forget the parents, focus on the kids, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to make the parents happy.
Never.
I coached for 16 seasons. I was a varsity assistant for 8, head coach for 8 on the boys' side. I don't do it anymore. Now I just kind of help out buddies or whatever. I do coach some of my kids are little, but as they're starting to get into hoops, I'll coach their little teams and stuff. I'm doing a little bit of that now. But yeah, just focus on the kids, make it fun for them. They're usually pretty good. If they know you care about them, they'll work hard, and it'll be a rewarding experience for everybody.
Yeah, it's kind of my philosophy right now. And I tell the parents that at the beginning. I'm like, hey, my whole thing here is just to make these kids have fun. You know, so that's kind of what I'm doing. But that's off topic. But I'm just interested. I was interested hearing you say that. I've watched some of your pods before. I haven't heard about that, but that's cool.
Nice.
I've played basketball my whole life, so doing that's been a fun experience.
Great. It's the best game in my opinion. I love it.
Yeah, and the coaching part's a whole new dynamic to it, but it's fun.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah. Anyways, getting back in the money stuff. I saw what I was like most interested when I followed you on Twitter for a while, that type of thing. But the way that you do your info stuff, I think is different than like anybody else I've really seen. Because first you had the Village, right? That was the first thing you ever launched that was like any kind of info thing. And then your Gumroad, you had like 50 guides, but they're all like $10. So you're kind of like a little discount shop, which is funny because that's, from my understanding, it's kind of where you source as well. It's like Dollar Tree type stuff where you did in the past. So you kind of set that up like a Dollar Tree. Like you go in there, I'd bought some of your guides because I'm like, I'm going to pay $8 for this or whatever. Why not? So what inspired you to do that? Because I haven't really seen anybody on the Amazon side do that besides you. And I know that has to work well because it made me work. It worked for me.
Yeah. I would say, so the Village was kind of born out of, we got our start in a group called Hustle Buddies on Facebook with Nate Jackson. And Hustle Buddies is great and it still exists today, but it's just very newbie centric, which is fine. But at some point, right, the value you're getting from the discourse in groups like that becomes minimal. So, we started the Village about 3 years ago. And, it's myself, Alexa, and a lady named Tracy Shelley, who's on socials. She's 7-figure Grammy. She does the Winning on Walmart stuff. She got a Walmart course and all that. So she's been on Amazon really since the beginning for about 20 years as a third-party seller. So she had a wealth of knowledge. And when it started, it was like, okay, where can people go, at least on the Facebook side, that's a little more higher level conversation. It's people that aren't brand new. They're sending in shipments. They know what they're doing. They're not asking basic questions. But they need some help scaling, right? So that's kind of what we focus on now. Is I take the Amazon side, Tracy takes the Walmart side, and Alexa focuses on finance and things like that. And the guides were just, hey, what else can we provide? We'll start to provide for this store, that store. Did a lot of RA, right? Still do a lot of RA, but did a lot more back then. And just trying to help people out there, and that's kind of how my RA Leads thing was born and all that. But the Village is still fun. We got about 130 people in there, and it's a real, I try to keep it positive. I think there's so much negativity out there, and this doesn't work, that doesn't work. Amazon's horrible.
If you're still listening to the podcast at this point, you are into it and a fan, and we really appreciate that. If you could do us a solid and like subscribe, and do all that stuff. It really helps the podcast grow. And secondly, if you could tag us on Instagram, just take a picture of what part you are at the podcast. If you like it, tell us what you think about it. Tag me at Side Hustle Experiment, and I will definitely share it. Now let's get back to the podcast.
And there's truth in a lot of that, but that's a hard way to go about life. Like if we're all going to choose to continue to do this in some form or fashion, right? Might as well be positive about it. Might as well have some fun. And so that's the way I try to at least present stuff is just, hey, can we look at the glass half full here and, enjoy ourselves while we're doing this?
Yeah, so unfortunately, you're talking to a glass half empty. I'm probably a big cause for a lot of that negativity. Unfortunately, I'm sure you follow me on Twitter too. I'm sure you're like, this dude won't shut up about being negative. I try not to post about it anymore because I don't want to come off as negative. But like, from my side of things, I just saw so many people getting rinsed, like so much money getting destroyed, and I just felt like I got to try to be realistic here, but
Sure.
also you can't be limiting. And like you said, there's no point in really doing it if you're going to be negative about it. That's why I quit doing it. But what are your thoughts on it now? And what you obviously seem optimistic about it, and that is the best way if you're in it for sure. So what is
Yeah.
your kind of argument there of what is very positive about this?
I think obviously as Amazon evolving into a business that is more driven by AI and algorithms doesn't make for a better seller experience. It doesn't make for a better buying experience either.
No.
And I hope that Walmart and some others can continue to push them to be better. I don't know how possible that is or how much they can feel that, but we all know, right, from capitalism that competition helps, right? Competition is good. And I think Amazon has been in a kind of, we can just buy the market and continue growing our market share and doing that kind of thing. And they're massive, right? One of the biggest companies the world's ever seen. But it would be nice to get back to some semblance of normalcy. You asked about Walmart a little bit, like the fact that I can get on and talk to my Walmart rep or call up a support person that's in Salt Lake City in America, right? Like that's so simple, but yet is such a game changer to just have somebody that cares and I can understand and is trained, and it's like, boy, if I send something to Amazon, is a human even going to see this? Is it going to go in front of the eye? I don't know. Maybe there's people that claim it is, people that claim no, so it's not. I don't know. We don't know. So, there's a lot of things to be negative with on Amazon for sure, right? All the gatings are hard, especially the random ones with no notice, right? None of that's good for business. I don't know. I don't know if they will try to change some things up. I mean, it's nice they didn't really increase fees all that much. I know the API stuff's changing, and that's a whole nother thing that I think is going to, in effect, increase fees a little bit. But I'm still optimistic. I think a lot of the super low hanging fruit stuff is a lot harder to come by. I think now, it's more of a transition into product knowledge, brand knowledge, certain relationships with brands. I think that helps. Where a lot of the super easy low hanging fruit stuff just isn't there as much as it was for sure.
And you do a lot of RA, correct? Is that majority of it? So now are you focused on certain brands RA? Or are you still like, I'm going to go to the clearance aisle or go into a sale and just get a bunch of stuff? Because I don't know how, I haven't been on Amazon in a while, so I don't know how easy the gating is. I'll know it's gotten harder, but you probably have a grandfathered account. Maybe it's easier. How do you go about that? And are you afraid, well, I can pick up 10 of this item, but it could get my account shut down?
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. So RA, wholesale, and an increasing amount more of wholesale, and OA too. OA is probably the thing I'm the worst at. There's always, everything's risk tolerance, right? Everything in life is risk tolerance. And so, with Amazon, it's like, okay, do I really want to sell this beauty brand? Do I really want to sell these Nike socks, right? Do I want to do this? Some people choose not to. We used to sell a ton of beauty. A lot of those brands are gone. Sell a little bit of it on Walmart, very, very little. it's just kind of gone. Just got to kind of replace it with something else. I think, everyone's risk tolerance, it's an individual choice for sure. I think with a lot of the cases, and social media can be great, and then it can also be bad, right? You see all these horror stories of this going wrong and that, and why is Amazon doing this thing that makes no sense, right? And then eventually, in the vast majority of the cases, you hear the whole story at some point. Or then there was one recently that it's almost to the point now where I'm like, okay, until I hear everything, I'm not even gonna, because like it eventually all comes out. And not even saying that the person did something wrong, but there's a lot of confusing situations out there, especially and people think brand direct is like so safe and so, talk to any of these big players, they'll have deals, they'll have LOAs, and then the brand just goes, no, we're good, we're not doing that anymore. And they'll file a complaint, and there's Amazon in the middle, right? Here's the seller and here's the brand. And even though this guy's got an LOA, the brand's going, no, we're good, we're not doing that. And what does Amazon do, right? Not to defend them, but you're in a tough spot. Like, it's like they're the court. So it takes a while to get that stuff sorted out. And the company is just so large now. It's almost like you got to know a few things are true going in, right? You got to know eventually you're going to have some issues. And when those issues come up, you have to have documented things correctly, and you have to have some sort of plan, whether it's an account health service or an attorney you have or something. You have to have some sort of go-to to fix it. And then just know to fix it, it's not going to be instant. You're going to get rejected. You're going to have to escalate. It's going to get rejected. Escalate again. Play the whole game. And then eventually it's going to get in front of somebody that A, cares enough to make it right, and B, has the authority to make it right, and they'll make it right. And as long as you're not doing anything wrong and selling stolen stuff or fake stuff or whatever, you're going to be good in the vast, vast, vast majority of cases. But all those things are true. You're gonna eventually have an issue or two, and it's going to take a while to resolve. And that's the reality of it in 2025.
So you kind of think that, and it's funny because me and John have talked about this before, that there's always more to the story. We've both said that like 10 times on this podcast. And it's like, for me personally, I've never did anything shady on Amazon, maybe a few little things that on accident, but nothing really shady that put my account at risk. And yet I've still have this Amazon account, no health things on it, and still haven't got shut down, haven't hit any big gatings. So I'm like, why would I even be the person? I'm not even selling really on the platform anymore. So It made me think what you said too. It's like, there's got to be more to this. Like, something had to go wrong in here. And maybe people aren't telling that story. They'd rather say, oh, I got shut down for no reason at all, Amazon's the devil or whatever. Maybe that's not the full story. I'm happy to hear you say that, because that gives me a bit more optimism for people that are on there, because I just see so much of that. I'm like, it has to be bad, but maybe you're right there.
We had an issue, and we're going back maybe a year and a half ago now, where we had a couple listings that everything was good, the brand was right, and they got changed to generic. And we got performance notifications for them. Okay, shoot. All right, let's send in the documentation. And then they just all went away. Like, just with nothing, it just disappeared. And we're like, okay, that's good, I think, right? Then fast forward almost 6 months later, like 6 months minus 3 days later, hey, here's your 72-hour deactivation notice. You have to fix these issues. Okay, well, like, we tried to back in the spring, and now it's the fall, and now you're saying we got 72 hours. So like, here's everything again, and we never got deactivated. But there was a glitch on the back end with Amazon where it just somehow got lost in the shuffle and went away, and now you're dealing with it. So like, is it their fault? Yeah, I mean, probably that's Amazon's fault, right? Our fault for being on a generic listing, even though I'm 100% sure it wasn't, and there's ways to go back and look, but like, and we got it sorted out, and we had a good professional to help us through that, and write a nice POA and all that. But there's just going to be stuff like that when you're doing this, and you just have to have a plan to get through it. But yeah, a lot of it's tricky for sure.
And you have all these like information thing. I'm sure you're talking to a lot of people. You're big on social media. What are the common things people are asking you these days? Because I remember back in my day, like I guess a year ago, the people were asking me, how do I source? That's all obviously number one. I can't find anything good. And I didn't really have a ton of like account health issues, but John says that he has more account issue DMs, right? Is that what last time you told me?
Yeah.
What kind of conversations do you get in your DM? Like, what's the general sentiment of like, what's the average seller to asking you questions?
Couple things. One, sourcing is key, right? The whole business is built around the ability to source. So that's number one by far. Number two, and this is a strange one, I get so many FBM questions, and I don't know why, but these people get into FBM and they start doing it, and then they don't realize like, oh, I have to do all the customer service, and there's all these returns, and when does it get refunded, and this and that, and it's like, I get more FBM, and I don't really do FBM. It's fine for people that want to do it. It's all great, and there's nothing wrong with it. But just know if you're going to do it, read about it a little bit, know what you're doing, understand how to set up your shipping template. Like people get into it and they'll get 300 orders. Then they'll go, man, I got no idea what I'm doing here. Like, yeah, you got to know what you're doing. So I get a lot of FBM questions. Account house definitely I mean, what I get now when I do like coaching calls and talk to people is more like, there's a lot of people that struggle to scale it. I guess let me back up. In 2020, it felt like a very viable business model to just be a side hustle, right? Side hustle experiment. That's what we're at.
Yeah.
I think it's still doable as a side hustle, but I think it's a lot harder, right? I think there's so much more involved. And this is where Walmart's different. Walmart to me feels a little bit like Amazon did 5 years ago. And I can walk into a store, I can grab this thing on clearance, I can throw it on Walmart. There's not a lot of weird fees. The returns aren't going to kill me. Shipping's not going to kill me. It's pretty, like 2020 was kind of like, all right, if my buy cost is a third and Amazon takes a third, my profit's going to be a third, right? Like kind of that rule of thirds. Walmart's close to that, not quite, but it feels more like that where it's just simple. There's not all these placement fees and crazy shipping and like it feels fun in a way, right? Kind of like Amazon used to a little bit. So yeah, I think it just, a lot of sourcing. Sourcing's the main thing people really want to know about, I think.
Yeah. OA or RA mainly?
Any sourcing to profit. How do I make money, right? Like when will I ever make enough money to take something out of the business? I get that a lot. And it's like, well, you gotta scale it a little bit for sure. Otherwise it's an inventory based business. And I don't care if you got some corner store or a hot dog stand or you're selling on Amazon. If you're buying and selling inventory, it's cash intensive, and that's just what it is. You have to have money to buy more inventory to grow. And if you're taking money out, you got less money to grow with. There's no way around it. And if you want more money, it's going to cost money, right? Their debt costs, whatever it costs in terms of interest or playing credit card games or, you gotta, financing isn't free.
So that was going to be a question I asked you. You obviously have a family. You probably have you live a decent life. Yet you how do you balance running this massive business and also having, all the family stuff you have to do? Because really that was a big mental reason that I kind of stopped the Amazon thing. Cause I got up to $2.5 million a year. And I'm like, man, I'm single right now, but where am I going to be in a few years? Like if I have a family, how am I going to take out, 10K a month or 8K a month, whatever it is? How did you come to do you have a formula for it that you give people, or how do you even come to that?
I mean, I think, I don't know if balance really exists, right? Is that something we just kind of always chase, that it's the drag you never really catch? You know what I mean? Like, I think you can do your best. I think, you got to put your priorities down. Like I said, right? If the kids have something at school, if there's a play, if there's a show, if there's a game, if there's I'm there. I don't miss those. That's why I do this. That's why I work as hard as I do, because I want to make that family time. And then obviously, my relationship with my wife or other family members, whatever, take care of that. If somebody needs something, if somebody's sick, absolutely. But then beyond that, it's kind of work. Like that's kind of my thing right now. And it's not going to be that way for my whole life, I hope. But right now, things are good, making money. Let's keep doing this. Let's see how far we can push this. And as that gets pushed and you make a little more money, that kind of makes some of the family stuff easier, right? It's no secret. The more the more you have, not that you can buy happiness because you can't, but you can buy convenience. You
Mhm.
know, you can buy somebody to come clean your house every other week, and then your wife doesn't have to do it, and she's a little happier, right? Like there's things like that yeah, it does make life a little nicer to have a few extra bucks. So I'm not a good one to ask about balance because my life is not balanced. I probably work way too much. But it's for a purpose. Like I said, right? If I can, in another 8, 10, 12 years, if hopefully if there's something that in terms of work, like that I don't want to do, I won't have to do it.
So it's kind of short-term
Mhm.
sacrifice,
Yeah,
long-term game. That's how you look at it. Yeah. I
exactly.
think that's probably the best instead of trying to balance. Maybe that, I think you're right. Maybe it is impossible. Maybe it just comes in like waves, you know?
Yeah,
That's how you balance it throughout the lifetime, not throughout a small period of time.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
What else you got, John?
Well, I guess to go more into that, can you kind of share your approach on almost reinvesting your profits? Like, how do you balance that with taking money out of the business? You kind of reevaluate at the end of the year, like, okay, we're going to take all this out, or kind of how do you go about that? And do you kind of have a lot of debt in your business, or are you mostly cash?
So it is always, I'll answer the second part first. It's always my goal not to have any debt, right? So like I don't want to pay any interest on credit cards. I don't want any loans. Currently nothing. No, we did have a loan this year from July through December. Little 6-month loan just because I really went heavy in a lot of stuff going into Q4 and just cash flow gets hard. And so you either really struggle or make it a little easier and take on a little bit of debt. So we've done that. We've taken an Amazon loan before. That's been a few years now. So really try to do it without, paying for debt. Um, in terms of investing, that's where Alexa really comes into play, and she does that a lot more than me. We have some employer sponsored retirement plans through because we don't have any employees, so we don't have to offer it to anybody. So we have those for her and I because we get paid from the business. We have some brokerage accounts and stuff we put money in. We haven't really got into like the real estate game or anything like that a lot of people like to do. Nothing wrong with that. I just don't know if that's necessarily something that myself or she wants to do. So we try to invest as much as we can. HSA. We have a nice HSA, health savings account, that we prioritize and put a lot of money into, especially with the kids and things. I think that's nice. But just try to invest while also reducing our tax burden as much as we can. That's really the strategy. And then from there, the business has been able to grow. We've grown every year. I don't know if Amazon will grow this year. But we'll grow. Amazon and Walmart combined will definitely grow, right? If we were at like 3.84 this last year, I would like to shoot for closer to 5, combined this year. Hopefully we can do that without any debt. We'll see. That's going to be kind of hard. It's really so Q4 dependent. I mean, Q4 is such a big part of it. So January 8th, it's a little hard to totally see that picture and, see even where the economy is and all that, with inflation kind of still going crazy. But, we don't take more than we need out of the business, right? We invest, we take what we need to live, and then the rest is just going back in.
It's interesting you said the inflation thing there, and I've always had kind of a thought on. I wonder how much, or if you've seen this, how much inflation has affected the profits on Amazon, because it seems like with inflation on retail products, would it larger the gap in between resale, or would it kind of tighten the gap? And I mean, it would make sense that it would tighten the gap. Things
Yeah,
come to a efficiency. But what do you think there?
I think it hurts a lot. Number one, I think it hurts actually RA first. Like if you just look at the quality of goods in discount stores going back a few years to today, right? If if you're going to cater to consumers that are super price conscious, if they'll only pay $19.99 for this thing, and I can get a brand name at $19.99, that's great. But as prices get worse and worse and inflation rages, now all of a sudden maybe I got to get a generic brand for that thing to keep it at $19.99 or close, or maybe I got to bump it up to $29 or $21.99, and I'm still getting a generic. So I think it hurts some of the RA plays first. Um, Yeah, definitely. It makes everything harder. I think it's more of a volume thing. Americans like to spend. There's no doubt about that. We're a consumer nation, and we're going to consume. I mean, all the data's out there. We consume everything we earn and more. Um, so when there's less left over, we're going to consume a little less. It's just, it's more. I think it hurts the volume overall than it does each individual item, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And this is super random off topic. This came to my mind as we're talking here. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this on so many podcasts. On somebody posting a graph on the increase in Amazon sellers and how it's going up forever. And now I'm pretty sure that was you that posted that. And I couldn't find the post again
Yeah.
because everybody says, well, people are leaving the platform. It's going to get better. And I'm like, that's not even how it is. Never going to happen because the information side, the ads on Facebook, until you stop seeing people running ads on Facebook, there will never be a stop of sellers because there will be more people coming in due to the money spent on acquiring customers for their information stuff. So were you the one that posted that, right? I'm almost
Yeah.
positive.
So, I mean, then listen, if you scroll down your Twitter timeline and you're seeing different faces, or I always used to see this guy and that, and they're gone now. You're right. That's all right. But the idea that sellers are decreasing is 100% false. You're just looking at whatever anecdotal group you were looking at before. There's a lot of churn and stuff like this, right? I mean, that's kind of natural. None of us started doing this. None of our parents did this. This is all newer for all of us. So it's a newer thing. While arbitrage has existed forever, just being an Amazon seller is a newer thing. So, yeah, sellers aren't going down. I mean, like the vast majority of people that apply for an account get rejected by Amazon. It's like 98 point some percent because it's all overseas, like fake, it's all black hat stuff. So they're rejecting the vast majority of people trying to open an account. It's not going away. It's just going to further increase. There's less and less brick and mortar every year. There's more and more online stuff every year. The numbers bear that out. And people are going to keep chasing it.
Where did you find that data? Because I need to know where to reference it because people say that and I'm like, I'm almost positive I'm right about this.
I think that was an article from Marketplace Pulse, marketplacepulse.com. I would check that. I believe it was from there.
Yeah. And what was do you remember the increase of like how much it was each year of sellers?
I don't know. It's always good to balance it, right? Like you got to balance the increase in sellers with the increase in revenue, right? Because Amazon is growing, Walmart is growing by leaps and bounds, but so are their sellers. So is the seller growth outpacing the revenue growth, or is it vice versa, right? If revenue growth is outpacing seller growth, great. The pie's bigger, and yeah, there's more people trying to eat it, but it's a bigger pie, right? But it's another thing if sellers are increasing and the pie is increasing at a smaller rate, then there's a little bit less for everybody to go around.
Yeah. I think we had Steve Roll. He's like a big private label guy. And he talked about that kind of thing. He's like, I think the supply of sellers is outpacing the demand of customers because I think we are reaching almost a tipping point of demand for Amazon. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't know what Amazon is or doesn't order on Amazon. So it's not like they can increase their customers until like people graduate and get their own, move out of their parents' house, get their own Amazon account. But that's kind of their only new customer base. Not like they're growing. So, but if supply or sellers keep growing, that's obviously like a negative on the seller side, really. I think that's the way he outlined it, and it made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and we've yet to really see. I mean, you have to go back to, I don't know, maybe 2008 or so. I mean, when's the last real serious contraction in the economy? And certainly since Amazon's really been a thing, I mean, there hasn't been, we had COVID, but then so much money was pumped in and all that crazy that it, it negates a lot of what could have been pain for a lot of people. So, and I'm not saying that's coming up or impending or anything, but like we've yet to see that on this side where, people really get squeezed, and that's what capitalism is. The strong will survive and the weak kind of fall away. And, people might think that's mean or whatever, but that's the universe. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, as a general question, then, do you believe that we're going to have some kind of like squeeze in the economy that crashed like that, or do you think? My personal belief is that we're way more likely to go in the hyperinflation route than we are a collapse. And I don't know, maybe that's what you think as well, but it seems like that would be the route instead of another 2008.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard answer to give without trying to be political. I, I
Go
think people
for it.
have a very low tolerance for pain,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, let me give an example, and I'm not going to give my opinion on either way, but let's say, right, Trump says, hey, we're going to deport all of these illegal aliens. We're going to do it all. And there's all these people that say, great, do it. And there's people that say, no, don't do it. There's a lot of people that say, great, do it. And I'm not giving my opinion either way. But when you start to see that play out on the news every night, and they're doing that, and here's kids being and like everything, you start to see that, like, with your eye. Do Americans have the stomach for that? Like, we they want to cut all this government spending and all this, and it needs cut. But we lived beyond our means for so long with all this debt. Like, to cut all that's massive pain on millions and millions and millions of Americans and the economy in general. Do we have the stomach to do that? Or do we just continue on with this, inflationary period, and we just have more and more debt, and the debt grows and the debt grows, and you push it off for another day until, my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids, I don't know when the day comes where, okay, this is untenable. But I just don't think Americans have a really great stomach for the pain, the downside. And I get it; it's not fun. So I kind of would agree with you that I think we're a little more apt to just keep kicking the can down the road on like everything. But we'll see. I don't know. We got a guy that doesn't need to get reelected, that wants to get stuff done, and we're gonna find out, I guess.
Yeah, the tough part for me about like, because everybody does think, Trump's going to save the world and stuff. And like, I get that perspective, but also, is he going to ruin his legacy? Because whoever does initiate that pain is going to be known as a horrible president. Even though long term, that's what we need. I think that what politicians really going to throw themselves under the bus and be like, this is what we're going to do for the American economy. That seems more unlikely than almost anything. Because
Yeah.
you're right. People do have a low pain tolerance, and to do that to the country would be really, really tough. And I don't know if we have a president that's going to do that. But we'll
Yeah,
see.
I don't know. We're gonna see.
Yeah, we won't get political though. All right, what else you got, John?
I know. So you've been in this space a long time. How do you think the social media landscape has changed from when you first started to now?
Yeah. It's hard because there's so many different kinds of social media, right? Like, if you go on TikTok, it's a lot of just fake stuff. Like, they're in Sam's Club, they're buying these massive cases of drink. Like, nobody's really doing that, guys. Come on. Like, let's use some common sense here. It's not profitable. Um, I think there's good and bad pretty much everywhere. There's good and bad on Instagram, there's good and bad on Twitter, there's good and bad on Facebook. It's hard. It goes in waves, right? Like, at the beginning, there's not a lot of information. And then some people put out some information, and a lot of it's good. And then as it grows, there's a lot more information. But because you have more, obviously the bad information increases, right? So now it's like there's so much out there. There's so many voices and so many podcasts and videos and books and media and things you can consume. How do I parse through and say, okay, this person's legit, this person isn't? This person knows what they're talking about. They actually do this every day. They actually do continue to sell, and they're in the trenches and practicing what they preach. Or, man, this guy sold 10 years ago and now he's just on cruise control and just wants to sell you this dream or what, like, whatever it might be. So it's hard to, kind of parse through all that and find who the real legitimate people are. And it's easy to do over time, but listen to the wrong person for a while, buy the wrong stuff, follow the wrong guy. I mean, it can wreck you in the short term for sure.
Yeah, what's your recommendation there for people to find out if someone is legit? Because I feel like, to be honest, nowadays everyone's that person you're talking about. They sold earlier on, and people told me to do that. Like, why don't you just keep coaching the Amazon stuff? I'm like, dude, I don't do it anymore. That's like the most immoral thing you can do, is like act like it's good for people and you're not even doing it yourself. You're the $3.5 million a year. That's like the person you obviously should go to, but there's probably not a lot of you out there.
Yeah, I think you always have to question everyone's motivation for doing whatever they're doing, right? Like, yeah, obviously the village is mentioned. I have a couple other groups where I do stuff with, and there's two goals there. One, I try to help people, but I'm not spending my whole day helping people for free. I got to put food on my table, right? So it's a give and take. I give you an appropriate amount of content you can consume and grow your business and profit from, and you give me a little bit of money so I can keep doing it. Like, you gotta ask, why are these people doing it? Do they post? Like, I try very hard every month to make sure, hey, here's my sales, good or bad, here's a recap, here's this, here's that. And I'm not saying you have to only follow and believe in those people, but if you've followed somebody for 3, 4, 5 years and they've never once posted something about selling or actually selling or any proof that they sell at all, that's kind of a red flag, right? Like, wait a minute, are you really doing this, or are you just kind of, I used to do it, now I'm just making it up as I go and pretending like I'm in the space, but you give no proof you're actually doing. I think it's, and that isn't to say some of those people can't give some good advice, but I want to be with the people who are as transparent as possible. We can't be 100% transparent, but you can be transparent enough that people know if you're legit or not. And that's where I try to fall, is just, having enough transparency that, hey, this is me. I'm really out here doing it. I'm just a normal guy. But yeah, it's hard. There's so much, like, even with the village, like we started 3 years ago, the difference there to now, just in terms of like where people can turn for good, legit info, it's crazy. There's so many good places to talk to real people now. And there's so many more bad places too. So it's hard.
Yeah, I
What would
always tell people like to look at the tenses. Like a lot of people are like, my first Q4, or
Yeah.
I made $1 million. Like, it's like this year, or like if you really pay attention to the tenses and what they're wearing, the pictures, like if you're in this space long enough. And it's always hard too, because me and Drew have talked about it. I talked to my girlfriend, like, I don't understand how people fall for this. And she's like, you've been in it for 6 years. Like, there's just like signs where you're just like, nope. Like, I could look at the Keep It chart and know that like you can't sell a case of Gatorade for $50
Yeah.
and like not buy fraud shipping and all this other stuff. But like a lot of people don't. And I think that's like the hardest part about it. Like, just to kind of, and then you see people, they go out there, they try to take shots at these people. It lasts for like, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. And then it's kind of just like back to normal. Nothing really happens.
Yeah. I think people are, a lot of people get into this for a good reason. Sellers, just regular sellers, they're desperate. They want to make something work, like Alexa did, like my wife, right? I don't want to go back. I don't want to do this school job anymore. Like, I want to be able to stay home, but I don't know how to do that. Let me try this Amazon thing, right? There's some desperation there. Luckily, we got in with some people that really were doing it, had a lot of good advice and information, and we've grown from there. But it could have easily went the other way, right? So especially when people are desperate and they really desperately, want to make this thing work, it's easy for people to trick themselves. Oh, well, maybe this is legit, or maybe I can take that case of Gatorade and that fraud label. Well, what's mail fraud? Like, yeah, people, make bad decisions when they're desperate. So it's, understanding that it doesn't like get rich quick overnight. To like, you can really build something that lasts, but it's probably going to take a few years to really get to a point where you can not even coast, but okay, I know what I'm doing. I got it down. I've got enough capital build up in this thing where I can, in terms of time, maybe take my foot off the gas a little bit, use my product knowledge, use my brand knowledge, use my connections, use my sourcing methods, and start to reduce my time and buy some of that back, and really build something. But it takes a while, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because Amazon, I feel like, is the best marketing for the get rich quick scheme. You go in the store, you scan something you already know, and you're going to sell it for a profit. Yet the business is probably one of the most long term that plays out, especially because the cash flow thing. But the marketing is quite the opposite. That's where like the huge disconnect is there, because people do really think, well, it is easy and I can just do this and make a bunch of money. But it's like, little do you know, you're going to go in 50 grand of debt before you get there.
Yeah, I would say this. I would say it's not easy. It's simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It is fairly simple. Like the the math equation is solved. It's all out there for you, but it's work. It is hard. It's not easy, but it's a solved equation. It's done. It's all out there. And it is fair. You buy X, sell it for Y, transactional arbitrage, move along. But it's simple but not easy, I would say.
I have a question here. If you had to restart, let's say like from zero now, you have no connections, you don't know anything about this, but you have to start this business over again. What would your first thing like be? Where would you go? What would you try to do? What would you tell someone?
Right back to RA, just trying to grind as much RA as possible, best margins I possibly can find. I mean, we started with stuff around the house, some used books, real simple RA stuff. Start small, start to learn the process of Amazon, and then go from there. We were fortunate. I think we kind of started the right way, and I would restart it just the same. One thing that we were able to do, and we were blessed to be able to do, is we didn't take any money out of the business for the first 7 months. And in that 7 months, we were at about, I'd say maybe about 650,000 in sales. So the fact that we were able to go that long before we took anything out really got us a nice head start on, being able to grow the way we have.
Yeah. What else you got, John?
Yeah, I really like that advice too. A lot of people ask me, like, they're so quick to want to quit their job, and I was like, that's your funding. Like, why would you get rid of that? Like, I get like the idea looks very romantic on like paper, but like a lot of people don't have any saving. Like, it's just a real mess. Alexa posted on Instagram that you're about 40% retail arbitrage, 25% online arbitrage, and about 35% wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that? Like, where you're going to do or spend money, or is it just that's however it works out at the end of the year? That's kind of what it was.
Yeah, just kind of whatever presents itself. It's funny because I was looking back at, so it's January. I was looking back at January 24, and one of our biggest seller, actually our biggest 2 SKUs of the entire year were Neutrogena T-Gel. And so I bought a ton of that in late 23, flipped it late 23, early 24. So when I'm looking back at last January, those were our 2 best SKUs of the month and our 2 best SKUs of the whole year. And now obviously that's all, it was discontinued, and that's why it was profitable. And now it's, if you still have some, God bless you, they're worth a lot of money, but they're also probably expired. But it's just different, right? So I don't do a ton of OA, but that Q4, I mean, that was all OA. That was all Amazon to Amazon. And we did like 14,000 units. So, it always changes. Whatever presents itself. RA is pretty constant for us. There's always, a good sale, good stuff. Big Lots is going out of business. And in 3 months, someone else will be going out of business. And there's always these things you can kind of go after. Right now, Ollie's has 40% off all their toys, right? There's some stuff there you can go after. The OA is a little more, stable. I'd say it's a smaller portion. The wholesale's growing for us. And it's just kind of born out of I have more product knowledge now, and B, I have less time. So money's not really the constraint. With me, it's more time. So if I need to get more product and I need to get it quicker, well, it takes a little while to drive around, to Dollar Generals in the middle of nowhere. So, if I can buy a little more wholesale and take a little less margin, but it's still acceptable, then I got to do that to fit it into the time I have.
I think I heard you on a podcast talk about the Dollar Generals one time and how you had connections with managers and stuff like that. And I always told people, like, if your goal is to scale RA, that's kind of the only way you can do it, because you can't like have more time in the day to scan stuff than that. Yeah. So what are your recommendations there on like getting to know these people, or is that the key? Am I right there in saying like that's kind of the way to scale, is to know the higher ups there? It
helps for sure. I mean, like, I always felt honesty was the best policy. Hey, I'm Steve. This is what I do for a living. I buy stuff, I sell stuff, just like you, just like all these stores, right? They're not making this stuff. They're doing arbitrage too. Just it's a different game. Most people are pretty nice. Most people see how you can benefit them. There's always some that don't. They don't want to deal with you. They think you're, tax exempt to some sort of scam and you're trying to defraud the government or whatever they think with their detective background. But Yeah, I mean, generally 90+% of them are pretty nice, and you can make some good connections. And if you can go dig around in the back room and Ollie's, and before they put any price stickers on anything, and because you made that connection, and then when you go to prep, you don't have to take any stickers off. Like, that's a huge win, right? So it's little things like that, to where if you are just open and honest with these people and introduce yourself, maybe have a real simple business card. Steve French, e-commerce. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. If you get a bunch of stuff you need to move or whatever, and as you build a relationship and buy stuff, they like you more. You're friendly. You're friendly to they see you're checking out, and you're friendly to the cashiers, and they don't hate you. And you come in, you got a smile on your face. Like that, just simple stuff like that kind of goes a long way to building those relationships.
Do you think that you've made a significant amount of money on that way alone? Like, if you had to put a split, let's say, in your RA profits, how much comes from just grinding and how much comes from the relationships you build in the RA space?
A lot comes from grinding. I would argue more comes from relationships you build with other sellers. And I know that's like cliche and dumb. And even me saying it, I'm like, that sounds stupid. But it's true. Like there's people I talk to, and it doesn't have to be a 1-for-1 thing all the time, but like, our business really took off. We started kind of a small little group. I don't even want to call it a mastermind, because I think that's so pretentious and overused. Just a group of people that want to grow and do better, right? And we all have common goals, and we got together and we started sharing some stuff. And boy, it's like, yeah, I do okay. I'm a smart guy, but I got one brain in my head, right? And so if I put it together with 3-4 other people, now we can, oh, hey, did you see this sale here? No, missed that. That's awesome. I'm going to do that. Like, oh, hey, I've been buying and selling this on Walmart. They're great. And it just takes a few little things like that to start adding up. And then, you get a network of people you can lean on for certain things. Or, hey, I got a question about, like, this person sells a lot of pet stuff. I'm going to ask this person about that. Or just to have people to go to, and they know they can go to you, and you help each other out. It doesn't kill your business. You're not out there like posting it on Twitter for free for everybody just to make money off of your knowledge. But, privately helping each other out here and there, I would say those connections are more valuable than the store manager connections for me.
That makes sense. I got one final question, and John, you can end with whatever you'd like. This is a personal one, because I found recently I probably got 50 to 60 grand worth of Legos stored away. I didn't know that this was like this, but unfortunately, like, this was stuff that I bought in 2020. So obviously it's like 3-4x in value.
Yeah.
The problem is that I scanned them all and I'm restricted on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do some Lego, right? So
yeah.
how do you even go about that?
Do you have a Walmart account?
I do. I open one up.
I just saw them there.
Okay.
I just saw them there.
Yeah. Don't know why I didn't think.
Let me preface this by saying this. I don't want people to think Walmart's just like a big yard sale, right? Don't just like go out and just ruin that too. Please, guys, come on. But it's a little more, you'll be fine. Like, you'll be fine. That's awesome. That's awesome that you have that stuff. eBay's an option too, right? You can do eBay. Some people do Bricklink. Bricklink's great. Fees are low. That's owned by Lego. It's their like Lego reselling arm. But probably for price and velocity, I would say Walmart. Second would be eBay.
I don't even know. I didn't think about that. Price probably is even better on there than Amazon, honestly. I mean, I don't know, maybe more competition on there, because I was looking at the listings too, and there was sub 20 sellers. I'm like, man, there was 180 on this thing the last time I checked. Yeah. So I guess Lego, are you still restricted on it, or?
No, still a lot of Lego. That's mostly what we do is toys. I just looked this up, so I know this, but 77% of our sales last year were toys and games. So quite a bit of toys. That's a big focus of mine.
That's such a good place to be, because I know you've probably dealt with this a ton. You get it returned. It's brand new. You forget about it for 6 months, and now it's 4x the price. It's like toys always go up in value. Yeah. So you can kind of sit on them. They're like assets, really. Maybe the only thing on Amazon that is like an asset. I've sold a lot of different stuff, and toys are the only thing that you can kind of count on to go up in value, when everything else kind of gets destroyed in value over time. Toys are usually really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to sell cornflakes, but your cornflakes box isn't gonna like 4x if you hold it for 24 months, right? Like that Lego set could potentially. So I love toys. I've been selling toys on and off since 2003 on eBay and different places. So I've been in the toy space a long time. And that's not, this is a little shameless plug here, but I don't know if you guys know who Greg Webb is. You ever heard of Greg Webb? Toyfolio on Twitter.
Yeah.
So he wrote a book called Toyfolio. Well, he's recently taken a bigger role with his family. They're homeschooling their kids, and he's the teacher. So he had a group, and I've since acquired that group, and it's called Toys Are Gold now. So we just started the first of the year. It's going great. It's almost full. But if anyone out there is interested in like learning how to buy and sell toys, it's not like some get rich quick thing. It's like knowledge, and it's a longer timeline thing. But check us out, Toys Are Gold. It's pretty good. We got a nice little community, and I enjoy toys. It's fun.
Cool. What else you got, John, to end this off here?
Yeah. So last question, I guess, is looking back, is there anything you do differently in your reselling journey?
Yeah, I think the one thing, and we haven't done this for a few years, but we fell into the trap early on of like, you have Q4, you've done good, you've made money, you've got this little pile of cash, and you go, okay, how can I change this thing to make it better in the new year, right? So there was a year where like, we're going to do all these grocery replens. Okay, well, that sucked. There was another year where Alexa bought this wholesale course, and she's going to do those wholesale. I don't think she ever opened the link. I don't. So like, there was another year I was going around, I was doing RA. This was about 2 years ago. There was a local grocery store chain here. They got about 60 locations, and they were clearancing like a ridiculous amount of their shampoos, conditioner, hair products. Like, I mean, I was going around just a couple carts to every grocery store, just printing money with this stuff. And then Kohl's started their half off clearance sale. And it was the first one of the year. It's always the best one. And I said, I'm going to go. And I started buying all this apparel at Kohl's and shoes and bras, and that's all fine. But like, the prep took so long, and there's so many onesie twosie things to churn through, and all these sizes and all these returns. Like, if I'd have just kept doing the shampoos and conditioners and all, like, it was so stupid. And just looking back, I think we always think we can like reinvent or change, where I think really we need to do like a post-mortem and look back and say, okay, what went really well? I need to double down on that. And then what was the maybe 20% of stuff that sucked? Let me cut that out totally. Let me try to get rid of the losers, double down on the winners. And that's how we move forward. And I think so many people are like, I've been at times just fickle and, well, I did this, but maybe the grass is greener here. Maybe I'll try this thing. Then you get into that thing and you're like, shoot, I wish I was back on the other side of the fence, So I think that just really being realistic with yourself about what's going well and what isn't can really help.
I like that a lot. I always tell people that. It's like, they're always like, how do you scale? It's like, you just do more of what works. Like, it's like simple.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks so much for being here. I know you got to go. Where can everyone find you?
They can find me on Twitter, and I should know my Twitter handle, right? Because that's embarrassing. I am at thevillage_AMZ on Twitter. That's the best place to find me.
Sweet. Well, thanks for being here. Go follow him. Go check out Toys Are Gold. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Like, subscribe, and do all that stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Thank you, guys.